Gosh, I don't do this often, and I was glad I could hide behind Phil because you jerk on my heart. I tell you, I ran for office because I believe in every single thing that those of you in this room believe in, and I'm willing to stand up and fight for it. And we know the things that aren't getting done. We know the Constitution's not being followed. We know those values and principles that we hold dear as conservative Christians are not being followed, and that's why I ran. I mean, that's the reason I got involved. And you know, Laura, if you listen to the people who helped me run 4 years ago, you know, they'll convince you that I have the worst voting record, that I've never been recognized for anything, that I've never stood and fought for anything. Problem is I actually ran across a quote just the other day, and I love it. At some point, Miss Pat, I'm going to share it. You know, I was one of those, Dawn, I thought, as a Republican running in a district where a Republican had never run before, that, you know, Haley was kind of, you know, he was the governor, you know, that you really needed to have his support. This was before I really spent a lot of time digging deeply into the things that I knew there was one issue that he and I vehemently didn't agree on. So I went to Jackson and I met with him, and after we got through fighting over the private property rights and protection of private property rights, we agreed that, you know, he would love to have a Republican from our district. And he gave this quote, and he just talked about these wonderful things about me, about how hard I was going to work and how hard I was going to fight. And I thought, boy, fast forward that 24 months later, and there's nobody in this state that hates me more. And my daddy said, well, baby, you did do exactly what he said you would do. The problem is you even did it when he didn't like what you were fighting for. And that's okay. That's okay. So even if those don't like us, that's fine. So Laura, thank you very much. When I realized that within the Republican Party, I might not have as many friends there as I thought I did, I realized there were other groups of people who still voted in the Republican Party where I had lots of friends. Laura, there are lots of times I feel like I have failed miserably. And so I appreciate you recognizing that there were times when I did. You know what happens when you spread yourself really, really thin? It's kind of like when you spread butter over a piece of light bread. You keep spreading it and spreading it and spreading it until there's really nothing left. We tend to do that. We tend to do that. My grandmother always said, if you want something done, ask a busy person to do it. And that's true, but sometimes we have to stop and focus, and I'm as guilty as anybody about trying to spread myself too thin, and then you have to stop and go back and focus. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you this morning, but I will tell you from the number of things I've heard here this afternoon, there seems to be a resounding theme. And Bobby Mitchell, I don't know what you thought you were going to come up here and speak about today. I'm not sure what Miss Laura thought you wanted to speak about, but what you did say made me think, take everything that I was going to say and stick it in this pocket, because I was reminded of a whole lot of other things over here that I want to talk about. And you know what? You're right. I ran for office to just passionately fight for the things I believed in. I wasn't sure who all in Jackson felt that way. And then shortly after I got there, I found Senator McDaniel and Watson and Angela and a few others, and we really locked in elbows and fought together, and 2014 came up. Man, I did not realize there were that many passionate fighters in Mississippi as there were that I saw in 2014. And whether your issue was vaccines, whether your issue was the flag, whether your issue was private property rights, or whether your issue was the Second Amendment, you were willing to dig in your heels and fight. And every one of those issues is still grounded in the Constitution, in your freedoms and your liberties. And so 2014 rallied us together. Guys, you do realize that 98% of the time, incumbents who have been in office for multiple consecutive years get reelected. You don't beat them. You don't beat them. And in 2014, you did. And it's unheard of. And you're right, because of what they did, we're never going to forget it. And if it does anything, it makes us pick ourselves up and we want to dig our heels in and fight a little more. Now, I'm guilty as the rest of you for having times where I have wanted to race to the farm, and I didn't care if we were digging post holes or what I wanted to be doing it. I just didn't want to be at this Capitol, or I didn't want to be at a meeting speaking, and I didn't want to be fighting anymore. Because I was like, you know what, I'm banging my head on the wall. I'm going to do that at home and at least see that I accomplished something. But every time we go back out and we pick ourselves back up, we're reminded, Miss Pat, of why we have to go back and do it again. Now, the one thing that we begin to realize, and Laura, and Sandra and Roy, what you guys started here really is, it's unlike anything else that the state has had to bring that unity amongst those conservative groups. Because the bottom line is and Danny Bedwell loves to talk about it all the time, and I wish I could really argue that he wasn't right, but I'm still standing here in the trenches fighting to bring that Republican Party back to where they need to be. One day I'll be brave enough maybe to look Danny in the eye and tell him, oh, maybe you were right. But it's not today. But I mean, but what you guys did, Roy and Sandra and Laura and the rest of you who fought so hard in the Tea Party, is that you created mechanisms and venues throughout the year that did allow others. You know, where else are you going to have a militia group and the Libertarian and the Constitution Party and the Tea Party groups come together and share that common good? One of the things that we talked a lot about in 2014 was that need in a bigger, larger way. And importantly, we looked at it from a funding mechanism, because the Republican Party is well-funded. They're going to always be well-funded. No matter what outside party you're running in, funding is always the issue. So as you know, we came out of 2014 with this brainstorm of United Conservatives Fund. I love the idea of it. I still think there's a tremendous home for it. The problem is we came out of 2014, and I'll admit I was worse than anybody. I wanted to run home. I was like, please nobody call me. Please nobody ask me to do anything. Let me just go home and shelter up for a while, and I'll get over this at some point. And I think we all did that, and that's fine. Then 2015 rolled around, and we had statewide elections, and there were, whether it was vaccines or 42, there were a couple of other big issues that kept people really out focused on those issues. I had my own election to run. Thanks to the Republicans and the Democrats locking those, that didn't work out so well, but that's okay. It freed me up to do a few more other things. But what we learned is that there is a need for what United Conservatives Fund set out to do. And coming back together in 2016 for the precinct project, it reminded me that, we need to pick that ball back up. We need to make it a focus. And we need to use it as a mechanism to raise money. Even if all we are doing is using the money to rally the troops, 2016 Precinct Project was a perfect example. Think if we had had a war chest of money to go out in all the counties. I will tell you, there are Senator McDaniel and a couple of others who did, and you guys in this room at several meetings opened your pocketbooks and said, hey, Melanie, we'll fill your car up. Hey, I think I had about 50,000 miles on my car before I started the precinct project, and my son reminded me today as we were fixing the flat, there's 75,000 on it. So, it takes money to go out and travel, and we didn't have the funds to do it the way we wanted. So if we had that, not only could I, but some of you in your areas, we could have helped offset your expenses to travel and to do it the way it needed to be done. My bigger vision, that's what I want to talk to you about for just a minute, and kind of Lars, but I hate to say the last speaker of the day. Two things: the last speaker before lunch and the last speaker of the day. Last speaker before lunch, I'm between you and food. Last speaker of the day, I'm between you and you going home and getting your easy chair or doing something else. So it's not the place you want to be, but I'm going to wrap it up really quick. And I know several of you have heard me say this. I spent my professional career working in the trade association arena. And actually was an executive director for a national trade organization where we had a state organization in every state, and we had 20 plus allied industry affiliate organizations. And it was for the National Cattlemen's Association. We were the largest individual ag lobby in DC. We coalesced with the NFIB to form the Death Tax Coalition, and actually had a lot of success for a number of years. But I will tell you, one of the things about that trade organization is a 120-year organization with over 250,000 direct members. One of the things I was always most impressed about it was the way they networked their committees to empower the grassroots. Every single decision that association did, and it was a huge lobbying organization, lots of grassroots involvement, lots of continued learning that went on. The decisions were made by the members. We had an annual conference and a summer conference, and both of them lasted several days, and we had in excess of 40 to 50 committees at every one of those. Committees from everything from vaccines, to Second Amendment, to membership, to events, to tax issues. And I got to thinking about it, and I shared this with, we were 2014 and we were talking, and I said, as conservatives, if we had a way to network on a broad scale basis, we've got groups in this state that are focused on taxes. We've got groups that are focused on limited government. We've got groups focused on Second Amendment. We've got groups focused on vaccine. We've got groups focused on education. And all of them are coming at those issues from a very conservative vein. Let's give them a way, even though Mary Jo's issue in theory has nothing to do with Bobby's, they're fighting for the same principle, and it's the same process, and it's going to be working with the same legislators and the same grassroots people that get them there. So I told McDaniel, I said, I look at several groups around the state, and I've participated in several symposiums like this. I said, but what if we actually took, and Chris said, well, you'd have to have people that do it. I said, Chris, there are several hundred people in this state that feel so passionately about what we believe in, that if you give them a structured process, they will give you 2 or 3 days and roll up their sleeves and sit around tables and work and get it done. But you have to have a process. So my thought was, what if we did a United Conservatives convention? Or what if we did a conference of conservatives? So it's not that you're coming in and United Conservatives is gonna tell you what you have to do. We're going to create a mechanism whereby each of these entities can come to, let's just say the Second Amendment is your issue. Well, you know what? Lots of those groups are very passionate about that issue. So Danny or Mary Jo may have people from in her ranks that say, you know what, let's appoint a couple of people to go to that committee. Because then at the same time across the hall is an education committee, and we've got a couple of moms that want to be in that one. And then just down, there's a few people who want to work on membership committees as to how do we grow people to come into the fold. Then we'll have some people across the hall that go in on a fundraising side. And the people decide exactly what's going to happen. You elect the members. It won't be like going to the state Republican Party. You will nominate. You will elect the people that you want. And then at the end of the day, at the end of the conference, you come out with a platform of things that says this group. And I call me crazy, but I really think that we could pull together a couple of hundred people who at the end of the day said this committee is going to unify around these 10 things, whatever these 10 things are. And we know that to get Mary Jo's bill passed, we know to get, pick your bill, whatever you want to get Common Core passed. Isn't it interesting how last year everybody was raving about Common Core? Guess what, guys? We didn't kill it last year. Does anybody remember last year we didn't kill Common Core? Did anybody talk about it this year? In the legislature? Did you see any? No. But those same Republicans who now have a supermajority in both chambers are going to come back and they're going to run and they're going to ask you to re-elect them again. See, that's what happens when they kill your bills. They just hope that you'll sweep them under the rug and you'll forget about them. And they'll pick other issues for you to focus on so you forget. We have to have the numbers working together to make sure that doesn't happen. I really believe the other thing too I've learned is that conservatives are busy. We're the kind of people that go home, tend to our own business, raise our own families, run our own businesses, and just want to be left alone. If you can force us out of our comfort zones back home to come into events like this, like Bobby Mitchell, we actually enjoy spending time together when we communicate and we talk and we network. We think of other things and ways we can be effective. I think that if we did an annual event like that and we created a couple of ways where we forced our people to have fun and enjoy spending time together, that you have created a new network of connections. You've shared more ideas. You've not just gotten to be business colleagues or acquaintances, but you've bonded through friendships, and you will fight, and you will spend more time together. And I guarantee you that Mary could grow her numbers through some of those people. Bobby could probably recruit new members back in counties around places of the state that he doesn't have, and then all of a sudden, across the spectrum, your individual groups are stronger and more effective, but you have a unified way to communicate and connect because you've been given an umbrella. The number one thing I want people to know is that I never looked at United Conservatives as saying, look, we need to get everybody to sign up to United Conservatives, come to their conference, because you don't need to be in the Tea Party, and you don't need to be in the Libertarian Party, and you don't need to be in this group. No, I want all of your groups to be incredibly successful, and we just want to give a platform to empower them and make them stronger and to create a better way to network. So, I tell you all of this to say the number one call that we came out of Precinct Project was people pleading, saying, Melanie, please don't let this die. Don't let it just fold. Don't let us fight and then next year sweep the issue under the rug and act like it wasn't that important, because it is. And the only way we're going to ever beat them, because you're never going to have the dollars, and y'all can all go out and have a windfall tomorrow and they would come up with something else. We have to beat them on the numbers. But if we plan and prepare and execute, that's how we'll get it done. And we do that effectively. There's a reason why the Guard gets together once a month. There's a reason why these groups train and get together constantly. It's because you're planning and you're working for what's on the horizon. We have to do that same thing. So, I have told many people, we came out of the gate with UCF. I feel equally as responsible for letting a lot of things slip to the back burner. I've told a number of people coming off Precinct Project, give me 6 weeks, give me 8 weeks, I'm going to get a group together, we're going to look at what worked, what didn't, start developing that plan going forward. But I've also started identifying some folks, and anybody here that wants to, y'all let me know afterwards. Sometime probably toward the middle to the end of July, I want to pull together kind of a think tank group of people to look at what is that conference going to look like, because we're going to hold it right at the end of the legislative session sometime next year. Don't know exactly the date. We need to all kind of put our thinking caps on and see what would be the best time. But what we want to do this fall is go around the state and kind of have a series of meetings to visit with folks to say, hey, what committees do you think we need to have? What are going to be the areas of interest where people need to get together and share, so that when we go into that conference, we're set up to address your issues. We'll look at some creative fundraising ways. We want to look at, where do we want to hold this? I want to make it an event where we feel like we come in, we bring our families, we spend time together. Because, it's just like somebody was talking about earlier, I guess that was Ross maybe, that generation that's sitting on your knee at home, they're the ones paying attention. You may not think it. Sometimes when I think my knuckleheaded 16-year-old doesn't have enough sense to get out of the rain, I'll hear him share a conversation with one of his friends, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he was listening to me when I was on the phone, talking about something I didn't think he had any interest in. So when we do these events, I want to do things for the youth. I want us to have a group of youth that come together. I'm working on a Mississippi Supreme Court campaign in North Mississippi right now, and through that Teen PAC group, gosh, they are powerful. There's no reason why we shouldn't do the same thing with a group of youth amongst our base that we've been working with. So there will be more to come. Like I know Michael was asking earlier, what's the next steps? We'll do some meetings throughout late summer into the fall on how to plan for something through United Conservatives to get everyone together next year, and we'll use that as our springboard. The number one thing I want to use the United Conservatives to do is to springboard into the Precinct Project for, I guess, what is that, 2020 is when it happens. But, we've talked about it so much. We've got 2018, there's some congressional elections, there's a Senate election. Between 2018 and 2019, every statewide office and every federal office in D.C. comes up for re-election. This is 2016. You've got 2 years to get ready. 2 years is enough to change all of that. But it's not enough if you sit here today and say, oh, that's 2 years away, and then 3 months before you wake up and say, we got to get busy. So I'm going to be reaching out to you guys so we can all work together and prepare and plan so that we are united, we are unified as conservatives, so that we can find success in 18, 19, and 20. And if we can't do it by then, Laura, I don't know, I'm thinking about, I don't know what the next career move will be, but we'll find success in 2018, 19, and 20. But thank y'all all so much. You've been incredible. You have reminded me that we should continue to fight, that we should not give up, And so anytime anybody feels that way, we just all pick up the phone and call each other and remind ourselves why we're doing this again. Thank you, Laura.